Добрый день.
Good day, everyone. There are two parts to this lecture. The first, we will talk about transport safety. How can we reduce the risk of accidents? What should we do if the accident still occurs? The second part of the lecture is fire safety. We will once again repeat the simple rules to prevent a fire. And of course, we will remember how to behave under these circumstances. How and with what to extinguish the fire. Of all types of transport, the most dangerous is road transport. The rules of the road are simple. They are not difficult to follow. If you do not follow the basic safety rules on the road, injury and even death may occur. More than 1 million people die in car accidents every year in the world. 8 million people become disabled. Let's talk about the most common causes of car accidents. A distraction. If the driver of the car is talking on a mobile phone while driving, or talking to passengers, sending text messages or eating, he is distracted from the road, and this increases the reaction time to possible threats. That is, it increases the risk of an accident. According to the United States of America, about 100,000 people a year get into an accident while typing an SMS message. And talking on a mobile phone while driving increases the risk of an accident by 10 times. Conclusion. For safety reasons, the driver's attention should be focused only on the road. Speeding is also a common cause of accidents. The faster you move, the less time you have to make decisions. The higher your speed, the longer the distance that your car will travel during braking. It is not recommended to brake too sharply. If you brake too hard, a person may lose control of the car. The car obeys the steering wheel well if the speed reduction occurs no faster than 3 to 4 meters per second. On the table, you can see the distance required for the car to safely stop. That is, for controlled braking at different initial speeds. Let's take as a basis the braking of 4 meters per second. If the speed is 60 kilometers per hour, then the car will stop 35 meters. If the speed of movement is about 100 kilometers per hour, then the length of the braking distance will be about 100 meters. Alcohol consumption by a driver is also a common cause of car accidents. Alcohol in the driver's blood reduces the driver's attention to the situation on the road. Alcohol increases the reaction time. The state of alcoholic intoxication leads to making wrong decisions. Ignoring the traffic light signal also leads to an accident. In all countries, the traffic light colors have the same standard values. Red, stop, yellow, waiting, and green, movement. If a person is in a hurry and moves through a red light, then he can make it, at best to the hospital, and at worst to the cemetery. Another cause of accidents is overloading of transport. In the documents of each car, there is information about the maximum number of passengers and cargo that this transport can transfer. Overloaded transport obeys the steering wheel worse. Mechanical breakdowns are possible. Failure to comply with traffic rules leads to the same result, an accident. The driver's health status is also important for road safety. Therefore, drivers undergo regular medical examinations once a year. If a person works as a professional bus driver, he or she undergoes a short medical examination every morning at the beginning of the working day before leaving the garage. Technical problems can also cause a car accident. Therefore, in Russia, every car must undergo a technical inspection once a year. And of course, a driver who is worried about safety should repair the car at the first sign of malfunction. The state of the environment can also increase the risk of a car accident. Therefore, if it is raining or snowing outside, the driver should think carefully whether to go to work today in his car or it is better to go by public transport if the driver is not sure of himself. In bad weather, when rain, snow, or fog reduces visibility, it is necessary to move as slowly as possible in order to have time to see a pedestrian or another car on the road. Wet roads, snow, and ice increase the length of the braking distance. This also needs to be taken into account. According to Russian law, every owner of motor transport must prepare his car for the winter. To do this, you need to change the tires on the wheels. On the winter tires, there are spikes that provide better contact with the road. The number of accidents is also affected by the quality of the roads. Therefore, it is advisable to avoid puddles on the roads. They may be deeper than you thought. If something went wrong, the seatbelt will help you avoid additional injuries. Don't forget to fasten it. If a person is sitting incorrectly in a transport and does not use a seatbelt, this reduces the chances of his survival during an accident. Although some people are ready to die for a beautiful photo on social networks, or just save money without paying for a fare. The airbag also helps to survive during an accident, but airbags are not stored forever. Therefore, they need to be changed periodically in the car, otherwise they will not work. Information about how often this should be done is found in the documentation of your machine. According to statistics, 38% of road accidents in Russia are collisions between cars. 37% are collisions with a pedestrian, and 16% are collisions with stationary objects, for example, trees or pillars. That is, a pedestrian is the same road user as the driver, and the pedestrian is also obliged to comply with all traffic rules. Therefore, we need to observe the rules of the road ourselves and teach our children to do this as well. The slide shows light reflecting stripes on children's shoes, clothes, and backpacks help them become noticeable on the night road. The slide shows how light reflecting stripes on children's shoes, clothes, and backpacks help them become noticeable on the night road, reducing the risk of an accident. If the driver sees that an accident is inevitable, he should try to remain calm and control the movement of the car until the last moment. Throwing the steering wheel and panicking is the road to death. You need to tighten your muscles and fix your body. You can't jump out of the car while driving. You need to wait for the car to stop. After stopping the car, you need to get out of the car and move away to a safe distance. There is a risk of fire or explosion. If it is impossible to get out of the car, you need to ask for help. We need to help the rest of the people. Get out of the car. The exception is a spinal injury. In this case, it may be better to wait for specialists. It is necessary to provide first aid to the victims. A first aid kit should be in every car. We need to call the police and an ambulance. If there is a fire, firefighters. If the fire is small, you can use a fire extinguisher. If a fire extinguisher should be in every car. If possible, the accident site should be left untouched for investigation. To avoid new accidents, you need to put up road signs so that other cars go around this place. The railway is also quite a dangerous place. In the picture, you see a woman who crosses the rails in a forbidden place. She puts her life and the lives of passengers on the train at risk. About 300,000 people die on the railway every year, and about 8 million people are injured. The dangers begin already at the time of boarding the train. Unfortunately, not all train stops are equipped with comfortable platforms for boarding. Therefore, an injury is possible during boarding the train. To prevent this, you need to take your time and not occupy both hands with luggage. At least one hand should be free to hold onto the handrail. It is also not safe inside the train. Luggage may fall from the upper shelves. Therefore, it is necessary to pack the luggage so that it cannot fall down. In addition, recently, injuries to passengers have become more frequent, on which laptops, tablets, or smartphones have fallen from above. So, be careful with your gadgets. While moving around the car, it is necessary to hold onto the handrails, shelves, walls. If the train starts to brake too sharply, a fall and injuries are possible. And of course, do not stick your hands and heads out of the window. In addition to beautiful photos, you can get injured from a tree branch. The same applies to moving on the roofs of cars. In addition to the risk of falling, there is a serious risk of electric shock. Another example of what not to do. This person is in too much of a hurry and does not want to look for an underground passage. He doesn't want to wait for the train to leave. He wants to pass under the train to the other side. But if the train starts moving, he may die. There is a lot of plastic inside the train which burns well. Therefore, a railway car completely burns down in 15 to 20 minutes. To prevent a fire on the train, it is forbidden to smoke and use an open fire. In case of a fire, it is necessary to inform the train staff. Fire extinguishers on the train are usually located near the entrance of the car. If necessary, you need to use the emergency brake lever. At the same time, make sure that the train does not stop in a tunnel or on a bridge. In this case, the evacuation of passengers from the cars will be significantly difficult. After heavy rains, floods, mud flows, damage to the railway is possible. This can also lead to an accident. What you see on the slide is not a photo montage. It is the thermal information of the rails. This can happen due to poor quality of steel, a sharp rise in air temperature, and the low qualification of the workers who laid these rails. And of course, another cause of accident can be a driver who was in such a hurry and tried to run over the railway in front of the train. Such attempts often end badly, first of all, for those who were in the train. Passengers of the train may also suffer due to sudden braking. Metro is also a train, but underground. Therefore, the risks are the same as for an ordinary train that moves on rails on the surface. But the dangers begin to wait for passengers even before boarding the car, on the escalator. For example, in 2011, one person was killed and 28 people were injured in China due to an operator's mistake that unexpectedly switched the escalator movement in the other direction. And this is the result of the inappropriate behavior of Russian football fans. After a football match in the city of Rome, football fans began to sing and jump on the subway escalator. The result, the breakdown of the escalator and 30 injured. Therefore, there are several simple rules of behavior on the escalator. If you are not in a hurry, stand on the escalator on the right, in the direction of movement. If you are in a hurry, go around the people standing on the left. Hold onto the handrail. Do not try to sit on the steps and do not put your luggage on them. At the bottom of the escalator, the steps will fold and cause injury or spoil the luggage. Do not throw small objects on the escalator. They can get into the gears and damage the escalator. The rules of behavior on the platform are also simple. Do not cross the red line until the train stops. If you have dropped your luggage on the tracks, do not try to get it yourself. Inform the station staff. If someone fell on the rails, help him. At the same time, be careful. The contact rail, painted yellow, is under a voltage of 825 volts. If the train is too close, it is safer to lie down between the rails. The train will pass higher. The steps to get down from the platform on the rails are located at the beginning of the platform, about an hour. Accidents on water transport also sometimes happen. About 200,000 people die a year. The slide shows a photo of a ferry that sank in 2014. To increase your chances of survival, you need to listen carefully to information about where the rescue boats and life jackets are located. You need to follow all recommendations of the captain and the team. Planes are the safest form of transport. About 1,200 people die a year. This is significantly less than the 1.3 million people who die in car accidents every year. But we are used to car accidents. The simultaneous death of a driver and 2 or 3 passengers does not cause as many emotions as the simultaneous death of hundreds of people who died during the plane crash. Therefore, many people are afraid to fly on airplanes. But few people are afraid to cross the road, although it is much more dangerous, especially if you run across it at a red light. But few people are afraid to cross the road, although it is much more dangerous, especially if you run across it at a red light. Pay attention to the statistics. The flight itself is relatively safe. Disasters most often occur during landing. For the safety of flights, it is forbidden to take explosive and combustible materials, toxic substances, weapons, and objects that can be used as weapons into the plane. During the takeoff and landing, it is forbidden to move around the aircraft. It is also forbidden to use electronic devices during takeoff and landing. The blinds on the windows should be open. This is important for adapting the vision to the lighting outside the aircraft in case of an emergency evacuation. A fire is an uncontrollable grenade that leads to financial damage and is also dangerous for the life and health of citizens. On the slide, you can see that the evacuation of students from the dormitory of our university. Your colleagues connected too many electrical devices to one outlet, which led to a fire. People were not injured, but the perpetrators had to pay money for the repair of the premises. This was in 2014. And this is a fire in another dormitory of our university in 2020. The cause of the fire is not exactly established, probably smoking. Fortunately, people were also not injured. I am talking about this in order to prove that the threat of a fire is real. Fires are actually happening near us. There are about 200,000 fires in Russia every year. Every year, 15,000 people die in these fires and 13,000 people receive various injuries and burns. During a fire, primary and secondary damaging factors are dangerous for us. Primary damaging factors, these are fire and sparks, high temperature, toxic grenade products, smoke. Smoke causes poor visibility. A person may lose orientation in space and not find a way out. The reduced amount of oxygen is also the primary damaging factor. Secondary damaging factors are the destruction of buildings and mechanisms. Due to the destruction of pipes, leakage of toxic and flammable substances is possible. The destruction of the insulating material by fire can lead to electric shock. Panic among people can also kill. There are many reasons for the fire. A fire can be caused by an overload of the electrical network, lack of control over heating and cooking, children playing with fire. A fire can be caused by an overload of electrical network, lack of control over heating and cooking, children playing with fire, smoking, or lightning strike. In order to prevent a fire, we must fight these causes. If you see a fire, you need to call the short number 101 or use the fire alarm button. About half of the house fires start in the kitchen. Therefore, during cooking, you cannot leave the kitchen, leaving the unattended oven. If you feel unwell or fall asleep, it is better not to cook. Flammable substances, oil, and detergents should be stored away from sources of fire and heat. The stove on which you cook your food should be clean. Fat on the stove is a possible cause of the fire. If fat or oil has caught fire in the kitchen, you should immediately cover the fire with a lid or a thick cloth. You cannot extinguish it with water. Smoking is a common cause of fire. To prevent a fire, it is best not to smoke at home. If you still prefer to smoke at home, you need to make sure that the ashtray is made of non-flammable materials and you have not smothered the cigarette before throwing out the butt. Homemade ashtrays made of flammable materials, for example, from a plastic bottle, can lead to a fire. Smoking in bed is also a bad idea. A person can fall asleep, drop a cigarette and die in a fire. Also, do not smoke if you are tired or very drunk from alcohol. After the party, you need to check the room and the surrounding area. Smother the cigarette butts found. Candles. They help to create a romantic atmosphere, but the lack of control over a candle can lead to a fire. Therefore, when leaving the room, the candle must be extinguished. Do not leave flammable materials near a burning candle. In order not to cause a fire due to an overload of electrical network, you need to know exactly how much power the socket or wire can withstand. Do not exceed this capacity. If you are using an extension wire, it should be visible. It should be on the surface. If you hide the extension cord under the carpet, you do not control the integrity of its insulation and increase the risk of fire. The extension cord cannot be pulled into another room through the door. By opening and closing the door, you can damage the wire and cause a short circuit and a fire. You will significantly increase your safety if you install a fire alarm system with smoke and carbon monoxide sensors at your home. There should also be a fire extinguisher at your home. Unfortunately, an automatic fire extinguishing system cannot be installed in all rooms. In the picture, you can see a smoke detector and a high temperature detector. Such detectors are installed in all the premises of our university. When you install a fire alarm system at home, make sure that the sound is loud enough. You can hear it anywhere in your house. The volume should be sufficient to wake you up. The alarm system should be checked every month. The batteries need to be changed every year, regardless of their expiration date. And every 10 years, you need to install a new fire alarm system. There are 4 classes of fires. Class A is Grenier of ordinary materials, for example, wood, paper, rubber, or plastic. Class B is liquid combustible materials, for example, gasoline, kerosene, paint. Grenier gases also belongs to the Class B. Class C is the Grenier of electrical equipment. Class D is Grenier metals, magnesium, titanium. Knowledge of the fire class is necessary to choose the right methods of preventing and extinguishing. In order to avoid a Class A fire, it is enough to observe order at the workplace, to free the workplace from inflammable materials. To prevent Class B fires, it is necessary to store flammable substances in hermetically sealed containers. There should be good ventilation in the rooms. To prevent a Class C fire, it is necessary not to overload the electrical network. Pay attention to the smell of burnt plastic, carefully look for any damage to the insulation of the electrical wires. Prevention of Class D fires. Keep flammable metals away from the sources of fire and high temperature. Gorenje is an exothermic chemical reaction. This reaction requires the presence of three components: temperature, oxygen, and fuel. If we remove one of these three components, we will extinguish the fire. Different types of fire need to be extinguished in different ways. In the picture, you see a person who wants to put out a Class C fire with water. As you understand, he has only a few seconds left to live. On each fire extinguisher, it is written which types of fires they can extinguish and which ones they cannot. For example, a fire extinguisher with carbon dioxide is well used to extinguish fires of Class B and C. For other types of fire, it is ineffective. A dry powder fire extinguisher can be used for any type of fire. If you don't have a fire extinguisher, you can use earth or sand. You can cover the fire with a dense, non-permeable and poorly combustible material. Water can only be used in case of Class A fires. If the fire is very large, it is better not to try to put it out. You need to immediately evacuate while it is possible. If you do not know how to use a fire extinguisher, if you aren't sure that this type of fire extinguisher is suitable for this fire, it is better not to even try. Let the specialists do this. Evacuate immediately. If you hear a fire alarm, you need to evacuate immediately. There is usually an evacuation plan hanging in the corridor. During the construction of buildings, at least 2 escape routes are planned. If you have time, you need to turn off the electricity and gas before evacuating. It is forbidden to use the elevator during the evacuation. If there is a lot of smoke, it is necessary to evacuate on all fours, covering the face with a cloth. This will protect the respiratory tract from smoke and improve your orientation in space. If the fire prevents you from evacuating, it is necessary to attract the attention of people who are on the street. During the evacuation, do not rush to open the door in front of you. First, check the temperature of the door with your hand. If the door is too hot, there is a fire behind it. Then try to find another way. If you are on the 3rd floor and above, do not try to jump out of the window. Wait for help. Thank you for your attention and see you all in the next one.